Good evening, everybody. Today, what we are going to cover is your chapter 2 of your economics, which is demand and law of demand. Some of the topics we will cover today is the meaning of demand, the types of demand, its determinants, and demand function. Children, in this chapter, demand and law of demand and everything related to demand is one of the most important chapters in your books from a board exam perspective, and it will cover major part of the marks that will come in your question paper. So let's look at, first of all, what is the meaning of demand. When we talk about the meaning of demand, me just wanting something is not equal to demand. Demand goes a little beyond that. We can classify this into three things to understand the meaning of demand. So firstly, there should be a desire by an individual. He should have a desire for a commodity. Secondly, he should be willing to spend money on that commodity. But is desire and willingness enough? No. He also needs to have the purchasing power. He should be able to. Okay? So these three things, when they are put together, then you will have demand. The definition of this is given in your textbook as that quantity which a consumer is willing and able to purchase at a particular point of time and at the prevailing prices. So there should be a desire, a willingness, and this should be backed by a sufficient purchasing power. Now let us look at the types of demand. We will now move to the second topic, which is types of demand. Again, a very important question, might come for 3 marks, either difference between, or they will ask you for definitions, could come as MCQs, or the entire answer as part of a larger answer for 6 marks. So when we talk about types of demand, what are the various types? One is individual demand and market demand. What do we mean by individual demand? Individual demand is the demand that is made by one particular person, you or me. When we club all of such people together, like what we call households, then it is called market demand. So the demand of all individuals in a household and all households put together is called market demand. So individual demand, one person's demand; market demand, many people's demand. As given in your textbook, individual demand refers to the quantities of a commodity that an individual consumer is willing to purchase at a particular price during a given period of time. Market demand, on the other hand, refers to the total quantities of a commodity that all the households are willing to buy at various prices during a given period of time. We then come to the next one, which is ex ante and ex post demand. Understand this? Ex ante demand refers to a desire for certain commodities. Okay, so it is more of a desire and not yet converted into a demand in the sense that it has not yet been purchased or paid for. So it is still a desire in the mind. I might desire to have 20 ice creams. Okay, so that desire is called ex ante. I have the money, I have the willingness, and I have the ability also, but in my mind I have a desire to go and have 20 ice creams. That is ex ante demand. Then I actually go to buy the ice creams, but I get fed up after 5 ice creams, so I end up consuming only 5 ice creams. That will be my ex post demand. So ex post demand is what actually happens. Ex ante is a desire and ex post is the actual. Okay, that is ex ante and ex post demand. If we go by the definition given in the textbook, ex ante demand refers to the amount of goods that consumers want to or are willing to buy during a particular period of time. Ex post demand, on the other hand, is the amount of goods that the consumer actually purchases during a specified period of time. Then we come to another important one, which is composite demand. What is composite demand? Composite demand is the demand for goods that have multiple uses. So composite demand refers to demand for goods which are multi-purpose. Okay. Let's understand this with the help of an example. Let's take the example of a household item called juicer, mixer, grinder. Now you get these as a separate juicer, separate mixer, and a separate grinder. And these days you have one commodity, juicer, mixer, grinder, which helps you with all the three activities. Okay, definitely the demand for such a good might be a little more because there's one product that is taking care of your many needs or wants. Another simpler example is go back to when you were a younger student and you had to buy your stationery to take to school. So there were these pencils that came, which at the end had an eraser as well. Right? You had an option of buying a separate pencil and a separate eraser, and you had an option of buying a pencil with an eraser attached. So now that pencil with the eraser attached is solving multiple uses. Okay, that then is called composite demand. Demand for such a product is called composite demand. We also have another two more types called, one is joint demand. I'll put it here. Okay. Joint demand. What is joint demand? Joint demand is the demand for two or more goods which are used jointly or demanded together. Okay. So two products that you have to demand together. For example, pen and ink. Okay, will that be joint demand? A pen without ink is useless, and ink without pen is useless. So when you purchase it, you have to purchase both. What will happen in these cases? When the demand for pen increases, the demand for ink will automatically increase. And if the demand for ink increases, then the demand for pens will also increase. We then have one last type, which is called derived demand. What is derived demand? Derived demand is the demand for commodity that arises because of the demand for another quantity. This is called derived demand. What can we take as an example here? The demand for steel, bricks, cement, stones. It is derived demand. Why? Because there is a demand for houses, so the demand for all of these will also increase. Okay. So in derived demand, joint, you have to buy them together. Derived is if one happens, then the other also is likely to happen. If the demand for houses increases, then the demand for bricks also is likely to happen. Okay. So these are the various types of demand. Let us now move to determinants of demand. One of the most important determinants of demand is its price. Any person with sound mind would go into a store or into the marketplace, and the first thing when he likes a product, he will ask for what is the price. Okay, so price is one of the biggest factors that determines demand. So what can we say about price and demand? What is the relationship between price and demand? We can say that a person of logical mind will say that when prices are high, my demand will be low. At the same time, if the prices come down, if the prices fall, my demand will increase. Okay? This means that this is an inverse relationship. Inverse relationship. Okay, when one variable increases and the other decreases, then we call it inverse relationship. So this is how how demand reacts to price. Let us then take a look at this in the form of a graph. When we draw any of the graphs, this is the first graph I'm teaching you all, so we'll go into a little bit of detail. We draw the x-axis and we draw the y-axis. We have to mark them. The point of intersection is marked with 0 or O. So let's take a scenario where the price of a particular commodity, let's say commodity A, product A, and let's look at how price and demand will work in this case. On the y-axis, we will put down price, and on the x-axis, we will take down quantity demanded. Okay, this is standard, you cannot reverse them. So what will happen if the price, this is our price, what will happen if the price is here? Will our demand be high? This indicates high, this indicates lower. Price, this is high, this is low. So when the price is high, where do you think the demand will be? The demand will be, we said when the price is high, demand will be low. So let's take that to be here. So at price P1, quantity demanded is Q1. You can draw a line to see the intersection of these two. This point is the point of intersection of the two. At a future date, let's say the prices drop. When the prices drop and come to point P2, where do you think demand will be? Will it get less or will it get more? It will move to be more. This will be quantity demanded 2. Again, this can be joined by lines of intersection to meet at this point. When we get these 2 points, then we can join these two. So this is our demand 1, this is our demand 2. We can join point D1 and D2 to form a line, and this line is called our demand curve. Okay, or demand line in this case. So curve will be if it is a curved diagram. So clear, we can see that when price is high, quantity demanded is low. When price is low, quantity demanded is high. The points of intersection of these two is called the demand line. What can we say about this demand line now? We can say that this demand line is downward sloping. Okay, so it's sloping downwards and it's sloping towards the right. Why? This is because of the inverse relationship between price and demand. Please remember, demand depends on price, not price depends on demand. Demand depends on price. So we are learning the law of demand. We then come to the next determinant of demand, which is another basic determinant, that is income. Income is represented by the alphabet Y. This is our second determinant. Okay, why Y and why not I? Because in economics I is used for investment, so we take Y as a symbol for income. Let's go to this part here and then we'll get to the graph. So in general we can say that when the income of a person increases, he has more purchasing power and so will demand more. Okay. However, economists have classified and said that it might work differently for different kinds of goods. So they've classified goods into 3 different categories: normal goods, inexpensive necessities, and inferior goods. Normal goods are goods that we need in our day-to-day when we go shopping, things that we purchase. For example, clothes, a TV set, a refrigerator, an AC. Okay. These are considered normal goods which you would just go to shop for. Right. What is the relationship between income and demand? When the income is higher, the demand will go higher. Let's say clothes as an example. When you have more money, you will go shopping, and when you have less money, you will avoid shopping. These are our normal goods, and they have a direct relationship between income and demand. Then we come to the inexpensive necessities. What are these? Take items that you eat, which is a necessity, and something that is not very expensive. Take bread as an example. What will happen with bread? When your income increases, you will tend to buy more bread, you will eat a little more. But this is only up to a certain point. After you reach a certain point, you cannot consume more bread. So up to a certain point, as your income increases, the demand will increase. After that, it will remain constant. The last category is inferior goods. What are inferior goods? Inferior goods are those goods of a lower quality, yeah, and probably cheaper. Keep in mind jewelry or items that you would purchase from, let's say, MG Road or Fashion Street. Okay. What will happen when your income increases? You will purchase lesser of imitation jewelry. You will go in for the real thing. Whereas if your income decreases, then your demand for such imitation goods or inferior goods will increase. Okay. Let's put that now into our graph. So we have our X bar and our Y bar. On the X bar this time, on the X bar we will continue to monitor our quantity demanded, and the Y bar will represent the income. So if we look at the normal goods first, which is the blue line, we say that as the income increases, the demand will increase. So as income will increase, demand will increase. So you have this curve, the blue line. Inexpensive necessities, we say that it will increase up to a certain point. Up to this point it will increase. As the income went up, the demand also kept shifting to the right. But after a certain point, it then remains constant. Lastly, the inferior goods, the demand no doubt will increase up to a certain point, but after a certain point, it will start going in reverse. Okay, so initially you might buy more from fashion street, you might buy more of imitation jewelry. But when your income goes higher than a certain point, you'll say enough of this, let me start buying more expensive, more classy things, things of a better quality. So your demand for those inferior goods will start declining. That is represented by a red line. Okay, these points over here indicate the point at which you will start demanding less, and this point over here indicates the point at which inexpensive necessities, the point at which the demand will start to be constant. Okay, important graph, again you need to go through it in your textbook also to see how it needs to be written. I cannot write the entire thing here, but as a concept I have explained what this is to you. Okay, very important determinant, income. We'll now move on to the third determinant, which is the price of related goods. When we talk about related goods, the demand for a certain product will also depend on the price of some goods which are related. These related products we can categorize into substitute goods and complementary goods. What is substitute goods? Goods that can be used one or the other. What did I say? One or the other. So let's take the example of tea or coffee. Okay. And in complementary goods, you have to use one and the other. So that's the difference between substitute and complementary. So when I talk about tea or coffee, we are saying that the price of a related good will affect the demand of the other good. So if the price of coffee goes up, so there are drinkers, there are people who drink tea and there are people who drink coffee. So if the price of coffee goes up, those people have the choice, they may move to drinking more of tea. So if the price of coffee goes up, if the price of coffee goes up, the demand for tea will go up. Why? Because those people who are having coffee have now shifted to having tea. Right? Let's take a look at a graphical representation of this. How should we show this in a graph? My X bar, my Y. So Y bar, X bar, Y. Let's take this is the price of coffee, and this is demand of tea. Okay, let's assume the price of coffee to be here. When the price of coffee is here at P1, the demand for tea, only those people who have tea will have tea, those people who want coffee will have coffee. So the quantity demanded of tea will be here. Let's assume that the price of coffee goes up. Now what has happened is there is a shift. People who are having coffee will now shift to having tea. So the demand for tea will go up. Okay, price of coffee went up, demand for tea went up. So the price of coffee going up is the demand for tea going up. That is what we represented here. And these 2 points, okay, mark your points. This is point A, this is point B, because you will have to give it in your explanation. Okay, all these points P1, P2, Q1, Q2, A, B, they need to be marked very clearly in your graph while doing your sum. So first you will give a little explanation, then the graph and an explanation. What can you infer from this graph? That's how you need to answer your question. Okay, let's take a look at the complementary goods and see what a graph for that would look like. So here we saw the demand shifted this way. Okay, now complementary goods. Let's take the demand for cars. Demand for cars on our x-axis, and on a y-axis we will take the price of petrol. Generally what will happen when the price of petrol is low, more people will demand for cars. Let's say we are quantity 1. But what will happen if the price of petrol increases to point P2? The demand for cars, because you cannot use the car without the petrol, and now petrol has become too expensive, so you can't afford. The demand will fall Q2. Okay, the price went up, and what happened to the quantity demanded? Quantity demanded fell down. Okay, and you can represent this by point A, point B, and this is your demand curve in D1. Okay, so this explains that when the price of petrol went up, the price of petrol went up, the quantity demanded of cars went down, and vice versa. So here we can see there's a direct relationship, again words to use, direct relationship, inverse relationship. Okay, so these are related words. Now moving on, there are then some other determinants as well, which we will take a look at. The fourth determinant we will look at is taste and preference, which we can represent. Okay, what do we mean by taste and preferences? Some people do not like Chinese food. That is their taste. So their demand for Chinese food will be low. Some people like Chinese food. Their demand for Chinese food will be high. So it depends. Demand also depends on people's taste and preferences. Similarly, in a community, there might be a community which does not eat non-vegetarian food. Their demand for non-vegetarian food will be low. Okay, because they don't have a taste for it. They don't have a preference for it. Some of the other ones are consumer expectations. The expectations of a consumer denoted by E keeps changing. At one time, people were more than happy and thrilled to have a mobile phone. They could now walk about and talk. However, these expectations kept growing. They also wanted to be able to chat. They also wanted to be able to listen to music. They also wanted to be able to do various other things. So their expectations changed. So the demand for a mobile phone, which you can just use to talk, that fell down, and the demand for a more sophisticated iPad or whatever increased. Okay, so people's expectations also will tell us about demand. Demonstration effect, another important one, especially in today's day and age, is the demonstration effect. What does demonstration effect mean? It means that when you see something, you want to buy it. When you see something is owned by somebody else, you also feel like buying it. My neighbor has a big car, so I want a big car. My neighbor has painted his house, so I want to paint my house. My neighbor has bought a new television, so I also want a new television. Shah Rukh Khan has worn a certain brand of clothes, I also want to wear. That is demonstration. Okay? In today's world, this has a large impact on demand. Then you will also have some other factors like government policies. If the government curtails the purchase of some, puts restrictions on the purchase of some items, the demand for those items will fall. For example, if the government bans cigarettes or puts an extra tax on cigarettes, alcohol, and so on, the demand will automatically fall. Whereas if the government reduces the taxes on certain products, the demand will increase. For example, alcohol is banned in Gujarat, so the demand for alcohol in Gujarat is as good as nil. I will not say nil, but as good as nil. Okay, so government policies also have an impact. Climatic factors. Climate also has an impact on demand. The hot weather, you are going to demand sweaters. In India, the weather is generally hot. So in India, the sale of sweaters is not as much as Denmark. Okay. So climate will also have an impact on demand. So these, by far, there are some more also given in your textbook. Please go through them. But the question will come for 6 marks if the entire question comes. So writing about 6 to 7 points along with the graphs and the explanation of graphs. The first 3 or 4 which I showed you up till these 3 are very important. You must write these. Do not write the simple ones which are inconsequential. The first 3 are very, very important determinants of demand. You must ensure that you write those. And another 3 or 4 will help you to get your full 6 marks. Okay. We then come to the final point that I want to cover for today, which is the demand function. What is demand function? Demand function, demand of product N, can be written as nothing but a formula, can be written as a function of what are the items that it determines: price of the product, comma, income, comma, related goods, comma, taste and preferences, expectations, demonstration effect, government policies, and so on. This is the function of demand. So we say that demand is a function of all those things that determine demand. This is all that we'll do for today. The next part of it, which is again very important, the law of demand and its exceptions, we will do in our next video.